One of the less common objections, but still worth noting, is the idea that if something is old, therefore is excusable even if it's reapplied in a modern context.
It's basically about how Lego is sexist, and how it's not cool how colors like pink and purple and blue and green are gender associated. It's been like that since fucking forever. I know blue has been associated with girls back in the day, and pink was associated with boys, or so they say. Who cares?
Unattractive equals evil. That's number 9. Okay. Well, this really isn't video games domain. This is more of Disney's domain, and they go back to the 20s. In fact, it goes back to the Brothers Grimm in the 1800s. This goes back a long way. This is not solely video games' fault. Bullshit, fuck you.
Girls also desire more beauty, accessories, and interior building.
Because they do. And that's why products like this are marketed towards them. Because they enjoy it more than any of the other things like the spacecraft, the firefighters. Men tend to enjoy that. Women tend to enjoy the beauty shit. It's been like that forever. And that's the reason these products are marketed like that.
The damsel in distress, well, that is an old story. The damsel in distress goes way back. I mean, back to like ancient. It's one of the original stories. Woman's in trouble, big strong guy runs in to get her. Now in video games, it too is one of the oldest stories on the book.
So these people seem to generally hold the belief that in the past there was inequality, and then women got the right to vote, and then suddenly equality dawned and there was no oppression left in the world. On the other hand, they admit that these stories are holdovers from the bad old days. Might these stories still contain elements of the value systems that created them? What baffles me about this response is that they are basically saying that these stories harken back to a time when women were treated like property, but that the value systems of that time did not leave an imprint on these stories. No one defends the atrocities in Bible stories, or even the Bible's sexist view of women on the basis that the Bible is very old. This answer is little more than trying to give certain things an exemption from any serious examination because they've been around a long time. It might be what we call the grandfather clause sexism. I wonder what feminist frequency would say about this argument.
It is a control mythology, a story which assumes that this behavior is natural and will never change. It promotes and encourages men to continue this behavior and creates an environment where women have no choice but to accept it. Showing groups of men engaging in this behavior repeatedly over many advertising campaigns creates a space in which patriarchal norms are encouraged and promoted. We have to rewrite the narrative and change the story to one where men can, do, and are changing.
But let's move on to some one-off arguments worthy of note.
Any supposed stereotypical portrayal of a woman you assume is not based on some secret woman-hating misogynist agenda from the game developers, but is rather because of what has become the classical portrayal of not only the body of a character, but also their strength and skills. Let's get on with the show by first defining some terms found in her videos and also terms I will use in my video so that everyone is on the same page of understanding here. Misogynist, a person who hates, dislikes, mistrusts, or mistreats women. Sexism, attitudes or behavior based on tradition and stereotypes of sexual roles. Stereotypes, a simplified and standardized conception or image invested with special meaning and held in common by members of a group. To echo Anita, some of them are portrayed as clearly objectified physical objects, but it has absolutely nothing to do with misogyny or chauvinistic stereotypes. In conclusion, characters are meant to sell a game, not to further a misogynist agenda.
Basically what we're seeing here is a matter of semantics. The first clue that it's a matter of semantics should be the fact that she's giving definitions. The term classical portrayal is being used as an alternative to stereotype, but there's no real difference. The classical portrayal is a sexualized and objectified one. The argument being put forward by feminist frequency is that stereotyping women as objectified sex objects is sexist. Saying that video games mainly portray women in this way is where the claim that the video game industry has a problem with sexism comes from. When you drop the semantic arguments about classical portrayals, this argument isn't that hard to understand.
Especially female fans, because we live with a constant fear of violence towards us on a daily basis.
Why don't you just buy some mace and a stun gun and quit bitching about it? You know, and the last time I felt afraid of something, I don't remember because I'm a grown-up.
Is it really because you're a grown-up, or is it because you're a man? Do you own mace or a stun gun? Do you even have to think about defending yourself in this way? Isn't the fact that women would have to take such drastic action indicative of a serious problem?
These lyrics are a perfect illustration of the way that men pressure women into experiences that they don't want, aren't ready for, or aren't interested in. Songs like this work to normalize this problematic male behavior, a behavior which contributes to and perpetuates rape culture in general. Yes, Moses?
Well, it clearly isn't an example. As I've shown, it's just your interpretation of the lyrics, and there are many ways to interpretate lyrics. Rape culture is a load of nonsense cooked up by radical feminists, where they try to claim there are social attitudes which mentally pressurise women into sexual activity. Yet much like this video I'm critiquing, they use extremely insignificant things as evidence.
Actually, this is a straw man of the term rape culture. Moreover, many examples, like the Steubenville rape case, where the media lamented how the rapists had their oh-so-bright futures ruined by their own actions, and countless other cases where the victim is blamed or the incident is ignored altogether, are far from trivial examples.
It's people like you who have killed television, who have killed entertainment of any sort worth watching, because these writers and these show creators and the producers and the executive producers and directors and everything, they can't do anything because of people like you.
Really, all TV has been ruined by feminists. There's nothing good on television. Do you even think before you speak?
Would you like to know what they went through to do that? Just putting it on the platter for you. Link and Mario are alone, facing about an army of 2 million enemies. And by themselves, single-handedly go through a living hell to save a princess that all she does is say, "Thank you, Link. Thank you, Mario." That's it! I went through all that for a thank you!
You know, for a brief moment I thought he was going to go all Han Solo and say, "I'm in this for the reward, princess," but instead he says,
I mean, hell, the ending of the game should be both Zelda and Princess Peach getting down on their damn knees. Look what they went through.
now for some sage-like advice.
Tips that women can do to drag their gaming boyfriends away from the video game. Now, all they really should have to do is, from the bedroom, say, "Hey, jackass, come in here," and have the dude put it on pause.
Now for a little segment I call Point Counterpoint, pairing clips from video responses with clips from feminist frequency.
I can assume that one of the issues here is exaggerated shapeliness and characters dressed in a way to reveal their bodies. But that isn't a problem exclusive to video games. In fact, I see women dressed like that pretty much every day. Go to any game convention and I guarantee you there will be a booth babe at any given table that chose the riskiest of all cosplay outfits, not because she was forced to, but because she wanted to.
And a lot of chicks who date gamers, and a lot of chicks who are just plainly into gaming, do this, and they dress up in those sexy ass costumes. Why do you want to take away their costume ideas? A lot of chicks also use those video game costumes for Halloween costumes. Why do you want to take away their goddamn Halloween costumes? You're this chick that sits there and fucking is just pissed off because some chicks actually don't mind showing off their body, and some of them like it. Some chicks like to get complimented by guys. Some chicks like to get complimented on how good they look. I don't know what your problem is, feminist frequency, because you're not that bad looking of a chick.
Ariel Levy describes in her fantastic book, Female Chauvinist Pigs, how women are being trained to be just as raunchy and objectify other women just like one of the guys. We're coerced into doing this instead of aligning ourselves with one another. One of the reasons might be to impress men, and I'm gonna guess that pointing out sexism isn't exactly popular with the guys. So why am I being told that I don't fit in? And I'm also told that the only place for women in this subculture is to be the hot chick, or maybe the booth babe at a convention. We want to be full participants in geek culture, and the only way that's going to happen is if we dismantle the boys club and tear those barriers down.
Such predicaments, including their capturings and kidnappings, only exist to further along the plotline and motivate the hero. It is in no way supposed to be any social statement saying that women cannot take care of themselves.
Big Barda is just one of many female characters whose random and meaningless death was constructed in order to create a more intricate storyline for a male hero. Comic books can be a little bit difficult to follow since characters are killed and then brought back to life, or there's multiple canons in different books for the same characters, so this doesn't hold true across the board, but it certainly happens a lot. Women in Refrigerators is one way of making sense of this incredibly complex world by pulling out overarching patterns of the way women are treated in comic books.
When she critiques of, something, it's always a gender problem. There's no racial problem to her, no sexuality problem. No, it's always a gender problem. That's what's wrong with her. She sees it as black and white.
The show is of course not without its faults. It has some problematic portrayals of racism and classism, but it does actually acknowledge those things and talks about them throughout the show. This is in comparison to most mainstream television shows that don't even really acknowledge that racism or classism exists. I think that even though it talks about it in a sort of problematic way, just having that on our television screens, I think, is a step towards making our TV programs more anti-racist, more anti-classist. Women aren't the only ones marginalized in Hollywood movies. So one variation of the Bechdel test that's actually useful is to apply the test to the development and presence of characters of color.
Now for a segment I call, I totally disagree with you. No, wait, on second thought, you're right. There's a certain hilarity to the clips that I'm about to show you. He starts out by arguing that fembots would create a feminist paradise because men would have robots to do the sorts of things that women stereotypically do for men, which would liberate women from doing them. Of course, if men simply learned to cook, clean, and take care of themselves like adults without a girlfriend, wife, or mommy doing it for them, it would achieve the same results without having to invent fembots. But as he is arguing, he comes to the realization that fembots would be used as leverage to control women's behavior towards men, and allow men to have a relationship with a robot which they could totally control. I think that this pretty well speaks for itself.
Let's talk about fembots for a second then, because in popular culture and historically, fembots are the ultimate misogynistic male fantasy.
Whoa. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Whoa, whoa, fucking whoa. Misogynistic? Now, forgive me if I'm wrong about this, but doesn't misogynistic mean hates women? Well, okay. So, let's say you're a man, you want some sex, you want somebody to cook you food, do shit for you, but you're like, you know what, I respect women too much to ask them to do these things for me. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to build a machine that will do all of those so that women will not be degraded. If you look at it like that, then the fembot is the ultimate testament to what men are willing to create and achieve in order to give women the respect and status in society that they deserve. And they make these robots look like women, so clearly they love women on a number of levels. So, I think what you just said is the precise opposite of the truth.
Why do advertisers love to use these images that reduce all that women are into plastic, homemaking, obedient sex slaves who don't talk back? In fact, they don't talk at all, and they even have an on and off switch.
And now we get to the crux of the issue here. Because, as I said, if you're a feminist and you really want this society where everyone is an equal and sex is not really, it doesn't really determine anything like a person's worth, consider. If men have their sex robots and housekeeping robots and stuff like this, right, then men and women are on totally equal footing, right? Men can appreciate women for their personality and what they contribute to a relationship besides those things. So, if we have these female robots, then women themselves have that much more value because they don't have to do all of these degrading things that the robots have to do. So, what's your problem with it? Well, I think it's pretty obvious. It's what you just said. Let me put it this way. If I had to go out, get on the dating scene, that's not really my thing, but I go out and I start meeting women and it's just a whole bunch of you, that robot's going to be looking pretty damn attractive, mainly because it's not always blah blah blah, everything's misogyny, blah blah, I'm so dissatisfied with society and how I am the victim of society, blah 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 blah. Listening to that shit, just get me a fucking robot already. I mean, I'm just saying that if men do perfect the sex robot technology, you are guaranteed to die alone. There are women who won't, but those are the ones that actually have, you know, like, personalities and intelligence and shit like that. But you? Oh, you are hosed. You know, it might actually be an issue of control. Like, just for instance, if a man can, you know, have a sex robot, then what are you going to use as leverage to get him to jump through a bunch of ridiculous hoops and agree with the ridiculous ass shit that you are constantly fucking saying? Well, it seems like you would be losing leverage, young lady, the thin leverage that you had. And then, I mean, why would a guy listen to you? You would have to develop a personality. You would actually have to learn how to say shit that was vaguely worthwhile. But you don't want to do that. You want to just keep blah 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 blah, and you can't have men, like, finding a way to get sex, you know, without having to listen to your nonsense.
And hey, maybe if we just stopped teaching our children stereotypical gender roles, toy companies wouldn't resort to stereotype toys.
Because the original marketing was for a certain set of interests, and if girls happen to have those because they were taught not to have stereotypically feminine interests by their parents, then there's no need for the whole new fucking Legos.